It's literally as far east as you can go and still be in the Mediterranean. It is past everything. Turkey is to the north and Egypt is to the south. So that's how far east we are. You're right. It does have, I think, especially if you're more familiar with European politics, British politics, you'll know this. So maybe it's not quite as common knowledge for Americans, but certainly if you have more of a European point of view, I think it is kind of common knowledge that Cyprus has been kind of a hot button country over the past. And well, the funny thing is everything was fine up until about 100 years ago. And it's only been in the past few decades, within the past 100 years, within even the past 50 years, that things have gone kind of sideways. So, but right, we should lay it all out just to put everybody's potential fears to rest, because there is the North and the South, as I mentioned, and they are two different political states, technically. The South officially is known as the Republic of Cyprus. The North officially is known as the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. And so the fact that Turkey's in the name there can kind of be a red flag for some people. The thing is, Turkey doesn't actually govern any part of it. It has no actual authority. It's not involved in the government or the politics in any way. It is involved because the North does rely on aid and funding from Turkey. So there is a kind of inextricable connection there. And also the North does use the Turkish lira. And so inflation that happens in Turkey, which is very bad right now, will also affect Northern Cyprus. But for any other intents and purposes, Turkey has no power over the Turkish North. So generally speaking, it's just known as Northern Cyprus or the North of Cyprus. And I mean, that's essentially what it is now. That's the situation now. What happened was that there have always been two ethnic groups on the island, the Greeks and the Turks. And somewhere around in the 1950s, when the Brits had been there for about 50 years or so, things just started to bubble up. Tensions started to bubble up, and this is, it's one of the things that I think maybe is a point of resentment against British people there now, because this did all kind of come up when Brits were technically in governmental control of the island. So there was some tension there, and it led to a little bit of it led to a civil war in the 70s. Using the timeline a little bit, but the 50s was the Civil War. In the 70s, Greece essentially decided to come in and say, hey, let's make it Greek. And they tried to unify, and the Greek portion of the island said, yeah, great, let's unify with Greece, which had always kind of been their goal. The Turkish segment on the island said, no, we don't want to be Greek. And then eventually said, you know what, if you guys want to be Greek, fine, we'll stake out our own piece of land up here in the north. And so it became its kind of own cultural region. Then Turkey tried to come in and make it an official region, and that's how Turkey now lays claim to this part of the north. They did invade in the 70s, and they staked their claim to this part of the land. There is a border that goes all the way across the island from east to west, more or less in the middle. It's really a third to two-thirds, really. So it goes somewhere around the 2/3 line, and that northern part is, it has a border that you have to cross before going into it, and it is what Turkey claims to be Turkish land. No one else in the world agrees with that. Nobody else in the world acknowledges Turkey's claim to this land, but there are these little connections, like, for example, the fact that they use the lira. It does have its own government, so it's not it's not under the Turkish government. It has its own elections. They are free and democratic, but they are separate from the South, which has its own free and democratic elections. So that is as close as I can get to very quickly wrapping up that little scenario, just enough to put the context of what the island is today into what it is right now. So there is the North, there is the South. Both are completely safe places to live, to invest. We know, many people that have properties on both the north and the south, as we've said. So I've been saying the Brits have been going there for over 100 years. They've been investing both personally and, the government invested in World War I, during World War I, very heavily. But personally, Brits have been investing there for decades now. There's no issue at all with concern over political tensions, essentially, at this point. I felt totally safe. The one thing that I will say, a lot of people's feeling of safety, I feel like, comes from when they're walking around. You feel like you're either safe or there might be pickpockets or you might be followed. But Cyprus really isn't a walking place. So even in the cities, people don't walk. That my colleagues that we were there with the whole time, one said to me basically, no, Cypriots do not walk. We do not walk, with a lot of disdain on her face. And I think a lot of that is to do with the heat. Most of the year it's hot and humid, and in places where it's hot and humid, you don't generally just go to walk from point A to point B. So I think that has to do with a lot of it. And then maybe because of that, the cities aren't really designed to be walkable. So even in the cities where there is some kind of public transportation, I still would recommend having a car. There is a bus line that goes all over the island, but I was told nobody should use it. In fact, they said it's always hot and crowded. But at the same time, nobody uses it because it's hot and crowded, which is a little bit of an oxymoron. But that also, for example, the buses stop running at 6 p.m. So I don't really know what their purpose is if they stop running exactly when people would be, say, getting off work and needing to use them. So, they're not meant really to be that useful. They're not a great system for getting around. There's not a lot of public transport. So, those are really the scenarios in which people, I find, especially for me being a city person, that you are thinking when you think, do I feel safe? It's like, do I get on a bus or the metro and do I feel safe? Do I walk around at night by myself? But you're not doing those things anyway. So in my experience, I never had any real cause ever to feel like there may have even been a scenario in which I could have been unsafe. You get out of your home or your hotel, your office, you get into a car, you go to the next place. On the beach, of course, there's always going to be people, rifling through stuff that people leave if they leave a beach towel on the beach bag on their towel. So don't do that. That's true of any place on the beach. But yeah, I had no inkling of anything that could be dangerous. It is also a bit of a nightclub culture. And I wrote this as well. It's not just I'm used to going out. If I go to a club, I go out in Paris, and almost everybody seems like they're under 25. I'm sure they're only under 30, 35, but they look very young. But when you're out in Cyprus, everyone is out clubbing. The demographics are every single range, people of all ages, all backgrounds. A lot of that nightclub life is on the beach or in a hotel or attached to something else. So again, it just didn't really seem like there was any scenario in which you'd be kind of out at risk of anything, if that makes sense. It was a little bit of a skip, hop, and a jump to get there for me coming from Paris, because to use a normal air carrier, you have to transfer somewhere else. So in Athens, likely, is the place you would transfer. And so to get there via one of the low-cost airlines or a Cypriot airline, you could go direct from Paris, but you're not riding on a main air carrier. So it's still a little bit outside of the norms for some of these things, when it comes to access and things like that. So if you are looking for, how to get there the best way, always pay attention to seasonal flights when it comes to looking at the Mediterranean, because sometimes in the winter you get maybe one flight per week, whereas in the summer it's 3 a day. Yeah, definitely over 300 days of sunshine per year. In the mountains, it'll definitely get cooler. So if you wanted to escape from the heat or the humidity, you can always go up to the mountains. I was shocked actually that in several of the developments that we looked at, there was central heating as well as central air conditioning. And I kept asking different people and in different ways because I kept expecting a different answer, but they said no, in fact, it will get cool enough that you might want to turn on your heat. And I kept thinking, but maybe it's just because they're really spoiled by the heat, that anything under 70 is too cold and they turn on their heating. But yeah, it can get even below 60, even at sea level. So it does, it gets a little bit cooler than maybe you might expect. But for my purposes, it's warm year round.